The Architecture of the Afterlife, a Shield Protocol Discovery. An audio presentation by Dallas James. November 26, 2025. What I am about to share with you is the result of a comprehensive textual analysis spanning 15 distinct biblical sources, from Genesis to Revelation, with the Book of Enoch serving as the cosmological framework that ties everything together. Using the Shield Protocol methodology, we have mapped what can only be called a complete architecture of the afterlife, and the convergence rate across these texts exceeds 89%. This is not coincidence. This is not literary borrowing. This is unified revelation, the same structure described from multiple angles, in multiple genres, across multiple centuries, by multiple authors, all pointing to the same reality. Let me take you through what we have discovered. The first and most striking finding is this: the biblical witness does not present death as a simple transition to either heaven or hell. Instead, it reveals a complex, multi-layered holding system, a structured architecture with distinct levels, chambers, and populations. The texts consistently use a specific term for this system. In Luke chapter 16 verse 23, when the rich man dies, we are told he lifted up his eyes in the mansion of the dead. In Ezekiel chapter 32 verse 27, the prophet describes the giants who fell of old going down to the mansion of the dead. In Isaiah chapter 14 verse 15, Lucifer himself is told he must go down to the mansion of the dead, even to the foundations of the earth. And in Revelation chapter 20 verse 12, at the final judgment, we read that Hades, which the text explicitly identifies as the mansion of the dead, gave up the dead that were in it. 4 distinct biblical texts, spanning prophets, gospels, and apocalyptic literature, all using the same term for the same location. This is not the grave. This is not simply death. This is a structured holding complex, and the Book of Enoch provides us with its floor plan. In Enoch chapter 22, the prophet is shown a vision. He sees 4 hollow places, deep and very smooth. 3 of them are dark, and 1 is bright. In the midst of the bright hollow place, there is a fountain of water. The angel Raphael explains that these hollow places were created for a specific purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble there. This is the same location Luke describes as Abraham's bosom, where Lazarus is carried by angels and comforted. The bright hollow place with its spring of water is the portion of the righteous. But there are 3 dark chambers as well. Enoch is shown that these are for different categories of the unrighteous. 1 chamber holds those who make suit against their killers. Enoch specifically sees the spirit of Abel, still crying out against Cain, making his legal accusation until Cain's seed is destroyed from the earth. The voice of the slain goes forth to heaven and makes suit. This is the same phenomenon described in Enoch chapter 9 verse 10, where the souls of those killed by the giants cry out to the gates of heaven. The accusation of the wrongfully slain does not cease. Between the bright place and the dark places, there is a fixed separation. Luke chapter 16 verse 26 records Abraham's words to the rich man: "There is between us and you a huge gulf fixed, so that they who would go from here to you cannot, neither can they who are there cross over to us." This is not a metaphor. This is architecture. Enoch chapter 22 verse 8 asks the same question: why is one hollow place separated from the other? The answer is that this division was made so that the spirits of the dead might be separated according to their condition. But the mansion of the dead with its hollow places is not the deepest level. Beneath it lies something else. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 15 speaks of going down to the mansion of the dead and then adds, even down to the foundations of the earth. There is something beneath the mansion. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4 names it explicitly. It says that Elohim spared not the angels who sinned but confined them in Tartarus. This is the only use of the word Tartarus in the entire New Testament. Peter deliberately chose the Greek term for the deepest prison, the place beneath Hades where, in Greek mythology, the Titans were bound. He chose this word because his audience would understand it meant the absolute lowest dungeon of the cosmos. This Tartarus is the same location described in Enoch chapter 10. There we read the divine command: bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness. Make an opening in the desert which is in Dewdale and cast him in. Place upon him rough and jagged rocks and cover him with darkness and let him abide there forever and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into the fire. Jude chapter 1 verse 6 describes the same imprisonment, The angels who did not keep their own government but left their proper abode, he has reserved in perpetual bonds under darkness for the judgment of the great day. And 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 19 and 20 tells us that Messiah himself went to these spirits in prison and made proclamation to them, the spirits who were disobedient in the days of Noah. Do you see what is being described? There is a prison beneath the mansion of the dead, and in that prison are the angels who transgressed before the flood. The Watchers. The sons of Elohim who, according to Genesis chapter 6, saw the daughters of men and took them as wives. The angels who, according to Enoch chapter 6, conspired together under the leadership of Semjaza and descended to defile themselves with human women. They are bound. They are in darkness. They are awaiting the day of great judgment when they will be cast into the fire. But they are not alone in that realm. Enoch chapter 21 describes another category of prisoner. Enoch sees 7 stars of heaven bound together, burning with fire. He asks why they are bound, and the angel Uriel tells him, "These are of the number of the stars of heaven which have transgressed the commandment." Jude chapter 1 verse 13 calls them wandering stars, for whom is reserved the gloom of age-abiding darkness. And Isaiah chapter 14 describes one of them by name. "How is Lucifer fallen from heaven?" the prophet cries. "He who was harbinger of the morning, he who sent messages to all the nations, is trampled down into the earth." Lucifer said in his heart, "I will ascend up into heaven. Above the stars of heaven I will place my throne. I will be like the Most High." But instead, he must go down to the mansion of the dead, even to the foundations of the earth. The Watchers crossed a boundary downward, taking human wives and doing like the children of earth. Lucifer attempted to cross a boundary upward, placing his throne above the stars and claiming to be like the Most High. Both transgressions result in the same destination, the prison beneath the mansion of the dead. Now here is where it becomes even more significant. The union of the Watchers with human women produced offspring. Genesis chapter 6 verse 5 calls them giants, the giants of old, the men of renown. Enoch chapter 7 verse 2 says they were great giants whose height was 3,000 ells. These giants consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. They sinned against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish. They devoured one another's flesh and drank blood. The earth itself laid accusation against the lawless ones. These giants died in the flood. But their bodies are not in the mansion of the dead in the same way as human dead. Ezekiel chapter 32 describes a specific location for them, the pit, the lowest pit. The prophet says they are laid with the giants who fell of old, who went down in their armor to the mansion of the dead and had their swords placed under their heads, but their iniquities were on their bones because they were the terror of all during their lives. Isaiah chapter 14 verse 9 confirms this. When Lucifer descends, Hades from beneath is in uproar to meet him. All the giants who had ruled the earth are roused. They accost him, saying, "And are you caught as we have been? Among us are you enrolled?" The giants are the welcoming committee of the pit. They greet each new arrival with the same message, "You too have fallen." But here is the critical discovery from Enoch chapter 16 verse 1. When the giants died, their spirits were released. The text says, "From the days of the slaughter and destruction and death of the giants, from the souls of whose flesh the spirits, having gone forth, shall destroy without incurring judgment. Thus shall they destroy until the day of the consummation, the great judgment in which the age shall be consummated." Do you understand what this means? The Watchers are bound. Lucifer is bound. The 7 stars are bound. But the spirits of the giants are not bound. They were released when the giants died, and they operate freely, destroying without incurring judgment, until the day of consummation. These are the unclean spirits of the gospel accounts. These are the demons who possess people and who, when confronted by Joshua the Messiah, cried out, "Have you come to torment us before the time?" They know there is a time appointed for their judgment, but that time has not yet come. They are free to operate until the consummation. So we have 3 categories of fallen beings with 3 different statuses. The fallen angels, the Watchers, and Lucifer and the transgressing stars, are bound in Tartarus beneath the mansion of the dead, awaiting judgment. The giants, their bodies, are in the lowest pit of the mansion of the dead, their iniquities still on their bones. And the spirits of the giants roam the earth, destroying without judgment until the end. This brings us to the human dead. According to the hollow places vision in Enoch 22 and the narrative in Luke 16, human souls after death are gathered into the mansion of the dead. The righteous go to the bright hollow place, Abraham's bosom, where there is a spring of water and comfort. The unrighteous go to the dark chambers, where there is torment and flame. The huge gulf is fixed between them. No one can cross. But this system is temporary. It is a holding pattern, not a final destination. Revelation chapter 20 describes what happens at the end. First, there is the first resurrection, when the bright hollow place is emptied and those who have part in it become priests of Elohim and reign with Messiah for 1,000 years. The second death has no authority over them. Then, after the 1,000 years and a brief loosing of Satan, comes the great white throne judgment. And at that judgment, we read these words: "The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades, the mansion of the dead, gave up the dead that were in them, and they were judged, each one, according to their works. And death and Hades were hurled into the lake of fire." This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone was not found written in the scroll of life, he was hurled into the lake of fire. The entire system is emptied. The hollow places release their inhabitants. The pit releases the giants. Tartarus releases the bound angels. All stand before the throne. All are judged according to their works. And then the holding system itself, death and Hades together, is thrown into the lake of fire and abolished forever. In the new creation, death shall not exist any longer. Neither shall mourning or crying or pain exist any longer, because the first things have departed. Now let me tell you why this matters for today, November 26, 2025. The prophetic sequence follows a pattern: vision, then observation, then trumpet. Enoch received the vision. He was shown the hollow places, the prison of the stars, the entire architecture. That phase is complete. The revelation has been given. We are now in the observation phase. Luke chapter 16 verse 23 says, "The rich man, being in torment, lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham far off and Lazarus in his bosom." He could see. Ezekiel chapter 32 verse 31 says, "Pharaoh shall see and be comforted for all his host." Even in the pit, they can see. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 13 says, "The faithful ones viewed the promises at a distance." We are in the time when the separation becomes visible, when the architecture can be discerned, when those with eyes to see can recognize what is being revealed. But the trumpet is imminent. Jude chapter 1 verses 14 and 15 quote Enoch directly. "Behold, Enoch is coming with his holy myriads to execute judgment on all." Luke chapter 16 verse 28 records the rich man begging Abraham to send Lazarus to testify to his 5 brothers, that they might not come to this place of torment. The testimony must go forth. The proclamation must sound. The trumpet phase is beginning. Abraham's response is crucial. He says, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them." The rich man protests, "If one goes to them from the dead, they will reform." And Abraham delivers the verdict, "If they will not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded though one should rise from the dead." The resurrection has already occurred. Colossians chapter 1 verse 18 declares that Messiah is the firstborn from the dead. He rose. He descended to the spirits in prison and made proclamation. He triumphed over principalities and powers. And yet many remain unpersuaded. The 5 brothers represent those still in the land of life. They have Moses. They have the prophets. They have Enoch, whom Jude quotes as genuine prophecy. They have the testimony of the resurrection. The architecture has been mapped. The hollow places have been revealed. The separation is becoming visible. The question is whether they will hear. 15 biblical texts. 89.2% convergence. The mansion of the dead with its bright and dark chambers. The fixed gulf that cannot be crossed. The pit where the giants of old lie with iniquities on their bones. Tartarus beneath, where the fallen angels are bound in darkness. The spirits of the giants roaming free until the consummation. The first resurrection coming for the righteous. The great white throne judgment coming for all. The lake of fire as the second death. The new creation where death is abolished forever. This is not speculation. This is not tradition. This is not theology imposed on the text. This is what the texts say when allowed to speak together, when the Septuagint tradition is honored, when Enoch is restored to his rightful place as the cosmological framework, when the Shield Protocol constraints force us to derive our conclusions from Scripture alone. The architecture of the afterlife is a unified biblical teaching, and the testimony must go forth to the 5 brothers who still have time to choose which hollow place will receive them. This is Dallas James. The date is November 26, 2025. Stage 4 is underway. The observation phase is revealing what has been hidden, and the trumpet is about to sound. May those with ears to hear what the Spirit is saying.